Welcome to the Live Free Now show, bringing you the news, views, tips, and tools you can use to live a free, prosperous, and healthy life. My name is John Bush, and I'm your host. And today is September 11th, 2020, 19 years after the big cataclysmic event that took place on U.S. soil in New York City. 3 buildings were brought down. The official story held that hijackers from the Al-Qaeda, Afghanistan primarily, even though most of them were from Saudi Arabia, they used box cutters to hijack planes, crash them into buildings as part of Osama bin Laden's Mujahideen. This was a huge event in the history of the world, and it created a whole lot of fear and anxiety and panic, much like we experience today with the COVID-19 taking place. And as a result of that fear, the United States federal government was able to ramp up and expand the police state, the surveillance state, roll out the Department of Homeland Security, consolidate Border Patrol and all sorts of agencies under that flag. Patriot Act, John Warner Defense Authorization Act, of course, included indefinite detention clauses. There were multiple wars of foreign aggression that were initiated in the Middle East because of that. Some, like in Iraq, had nothing to do with 9/11. And not to mention the body scanners, if everyone remembers the big stink that took place about all of that, of course. A lot changed, and it was because everyone was afraid for their lives and afraid of the threat of terrorism that people willingly gave up those rights. There's an old Ben Franklin quote that says, "Those who give up essential liberties for security deserve neither and get neither," something like that. Well, that was definitely the case on 9/11. It's also the case with the pandemic stuff going on right now, or the scandemic or the plandemic, whatever you want to call it. Today, we are going to go over what I believe to be some smoking gun evidence that demonstrates the official account of what took place on 9/11 is bogus, is not true. And I want to demonstrate through evidence, studies, research, video evidence that the buildings, in fact, World Trade Center 1 and 2, which most everyone's familiar with, of course, when you just had it imprinted in your mind, constantly replayed on TV, but also World Trade Center Building 7, a 47-story skyscraper that collapsed several hours later on the afternoon of 9/11, was not struck by a plane, was pelted with debris, but it had a total freefall collapse. So we're going to focus on a lot of that stuff. I'm going to talk a little bit about my history as a 9/11 truther. I woke up to the idea that the government story was hogwash back in never forget Tower 6, someone says, back in 2002, actually. I saw a documentary by Alex Jones, love him or hate him, called 9/11 Road to Tyranny on cable access. I had the pleasure of living in Austin, Texas, where Jones also is from. He used to do a show that would come on Channel 10 cable access. The old school Austinites might remember that. But early on, I was exposed to these ideas. And I got to tell you, it was very difficult to be a 9/11 truther back in 2002, when everyone was gung-ho patriotic. And if you spoke out against what was going on, you were considered unpatriotic. And like George Bush said, you're either with us or you're with the terrorists. I'm grateful that since then, in the past 19 years, especially 2002 to 2010, there was a huge 9/11 truth movement that exploded onto the scene and really started asking some tough questions, putting out documentaries, architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth we'll talk about later, and a lot of people now are aware of the truth. However, a lot of people still deny the truth of what took place, or at least a lot of people. I'm not going to claim to know the absolute truth, right? I wasn't there. I wasn't privy. I didn't see the buildings get wired for controlled demolition, although there's all sorts of evidence and stories about the security companies and who they were on the payroll for, and buildings and elevator towers being shut down and stuff before 9/11. But I do know that the official story, of course, is untrue, right? So as we talk about this, I'm going to point out what's empirical evidence, what that can be shown, that can be proven. And then I'm going to, if I'm speculating, I'm going to talk about what the speculation is to specify that. And again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and we could take some of your comments throughout as well. Somebody said that we were buffering and not having a good signal. Let me know if it's still like that. Can you guys hear me? Am I coming through? Okay. Testing. 1, 2, 3. This is the Live Free Now podcast. We broadcast live on the Conscious Resistance Network YouTube channel, on my own channel as well. And then you can get the podcast feed. Before we go any further, I want to invite you guys to subscribe. Somebody's saying buffering is severe. Maybe we should end it and then start her back up again here real quick. Let me try that out here. Buffering is severe. We do have a good connection. We've always had a good connection. So I'm not sure what the story is. And if you can't, can you tell me what it is that it's buffering on? What channel? Because we're live streaming on all sorts of different stuff. The YouTube audience may look like. All right, well, we're going to start over here real quick. Thanks for tuning in to this short, brief introduction. We'll be back. Looks like Facebook's good, but YouTube is trouble. So we'll be right back, guys.